Welcome to Executives at the Edge, a podcast brought to you by MEF. I'm your host, Pascal Menezes. Join me as we explore thought-provoking perspectives from the leaders and changemakers who are propelling enterprise digital transformation forward. Well, I'm really excited to have Bertrand Buclin, Head of International Infrastructures and Technologies from AT&T. Bertrand, welcome to Executives at the Edge. And today I believe we're going to cover some really interesting concepts and topics, really automation, how to really leverage automation for businesses. And finally, we're going to cover also, I believe, what is benefiting AT&T by participating in MEF, and where do you see MEF really helping the telecom industry? So Bertrand, welcome. And if you can just tell our listeners more about yourself and AT&T International, that'd be really appreciated.
Cool. Thanks, Pascal, for having me. I've been with AT&T for 20 years and 28 years now. Always on the international side. I've been privileged of going through many different roles within AT&T, being in labs research, being in engineering, being in sales, in pricing, and currently heading the infrastructure and technology for the international unit. The challenge for AT&T internationally is that we don't own fiber or wireless spectrum like we do in the US. We are riding over the top of everyone else's network to serve our global customers. So we're not a capital-driven business like other telcos are. We are an expense-driven business. We don't invest in building facilities. We are using facilities from others. But we're trying to be smart in the way that we use them, and we're trying to make sure that we are working with our suppliers who are our partners and are an essential element of our ecosystem to build the services that we're delivering to our enterprise customers. By the way, we only focus on enterprise customers. We're not serving consumers directly. We're not serving a wholesale segment. We are purely an enterprise-driven business.
Interesting. So this is not AT&T in the Americas. This is AT&T around the world, a very different AT&T in some ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And something new for me.
and that's, indeed a different AT&T. It's a different business driver for us as well. But we are still AT&T. We're serving the AT&T global customers wherever they go around the world.
Yeah.
Right. Our main objective is to serve the multinationals that are operating in the US. They're not necessarily US headquartered. They have an important US presence, but more importantly, they have an important presence all around the world. And the unique selling point we have for them is wherever they go, we can deliver services, and we tend to deliver the same service everywhere.
Oh, that's
We're trying to flatten the
cool.
world.
Yeah, very cool. So Bertrand, we talk about automation because of course you want to be doing this in an automated way. So what are the key considerations for successfully implementing automation?
Automation is something that you need to live by and breathe by every day. Automation is not a veneer. Automation is part of your core DNA. If you cannot automate everything in your process, then you're not embarked on the automation journey. When I mean automate everything, it means that it's not only a question of interacting with your suppliers, it's also automating how you construct the service. How do you handle the order of the customer, decompose it into the elements that you need to order, have that decomposition being done automatically, and then for each of the components, you're spinning off sub-processes to go and deliver things, right? It's simple on paper. It's actually quite an art to make it happen and make sure that you can automate that whole process end to end so that eventually, if you are exposing automation to the customer, you can be true to the value proposition.
So we say automation. So these are machines to machines that are doing the work of what used to be human beings manually, correct?
It's partially what humans being were doing, but it's beyond what the humans being were doing because what machines can do are way beyond that. And that's, for example, a human would take some time to execute a task, build something, configure a router and so on. A machine will do that in milliseconds. By the time you've done it, you can use it right there. And once you don't need it anymore, the paradigm of elastic resources, you can tear it down. A human will, be crying over tearing down the work is built, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So automation is delivering experience that we get from today buying clouds or the cloud experience, which is basically everything is instant and on demand. And everything just happens right away. I don't wait months and weeks or where is my order or when is it going to happen? It just happens.
Well, that's what people expect of automation. That's an interesting point you're making here, Pascal. The as a service paradigm, people indeed are having a mental picture of what they're doing with Amazon, what they're doing with Microsoft, where they just click on the portal and get something right there, spin it up, spin it down. Well, networking is a physical world. The customers are not living in data centers. The world is not living in data center. Actually, the world is living away from the data centers. Our job as a telecom operator is to link the customer wherever they are around the world back to where their data processing action is taking place. So the data processing happens in the data center. But a customer location, consider, for example, a car dealer, a manufacturing plant, and so on. Those are the customer locations we're serving. They all spread around the world. So our job is how do we connect them back to the workload that is residing in the cloud data centers? And that's a very physical word. Connecting a data center is one thing you do once. Connecting customer locations is the same thing that you need to do for each of the customer locations. If they're living in the historical part of a town, you need to get construction permits to bring a fiber to that place. You have to go through the historical inspection commissions and those kind of things. All things that are not digitalized, no things that are not automated. It still requires a lot of humans involved in that. The question is, how do you get the message to the right human in the right time, as mostly efficiently as possible, so that you shorten the cycle time? But there is always a human element of it. And that's what we're trying to do with automation, is make sure everything that can be automated is indeed happening efficiently, but everything that needs to be involving a human is communicated as clearly as possible to that human for proper execution. And that's the challenge of it.
Interesting. So automation is not always machine to machine. It's sometimes machine to machine, machine to human, who has very clear instructions to get it done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's figuring out also how do you catch the fallout. So we're having, billing disputes. We're having, all sorts of problems that are endemic to our industry. The main reason for billing dispute is usually that someone did not do their job properly. They did not close an order, or they did not record that there was a change to be applied to that order. They just went off and did the thing, which was the right thing to please the customer on the spot, but not thinking that, a month later we will get the invoice for it. And if we have an invoice for a service rendered in a place where it's not matching what we had in order, that's going to raise a dispute. Well, at the time the change was made, someone could have updated the order form and processed it again. For some reason, that did not take place. Automation should also be about how do we catch those mistakes, maybe at the spot or shortly after, correct it so that we don't have billing disputes later on. Right? That's what automation is about. It's not just about speeding up the service. It's about automating the business process. It's about helping the human in closing those gaps. We have tons of orders which are still open that should have been closed 10 years ago, right? For some reasons, they were not.
Interesting. So how can businesses leverage automation?
They can leverage in indeed being more and more efficient. They can leverage in, staying on top of the human dimension of the work and considering automation as not necessarily replacing humans, but helping humans doing the work. It's about helping designing things so that they are meeting the customer experience. Our industry has been very much, focused on service levels up until now. The new buzzword which is coming up is experience level agreements. Is a service level necessarily the same for everyone? No. It needs to be fit for the purpose, fit for the business intent. Automation can help you tailoring things to the exact needs of the businesses. Like, on your cloud experience, you're spinning up virtual machines with different parameters and different software, or you're using, containers and those kind of things. You are making use of elastic resources that are fit for the workload that you have at that stage. Automation is actually helping us managing that customization efficiently, offering the businesses a range of solutions that they can tailor to meet the expected experience of their business processes.
Interesting, because I was just seeing and reading an article about AI, and everybody's worried AI is going to take away all the jobs. And really, you've got to see AI as more of an augmentation to making the life of a human being or worker better. Example, a developer was a good example. So the minutia of, the AI could actually look at the code and give some pointers, I'll write it more efficiently, could give some ideas of where it could bug check. It doesn't really obviously have to completely replace the developer completely. So are you saying like that's the idea of automation? It's an augmentation process, not a full rip and replace of all human beings around the world.
AI is brain processes.
No, I'm talking about automation now.
Automation, if an automation is a mean to an end, and automation is something to help improving your business process. It does not replace the business process. Actually, if you don't have a proper business process, you cannot implement automation.
Of course, we know what to do.
So if you're not thinking through your automation, if you're not thinking through your business process, you will not be able to implement automation properly. So, automation is not the objective by itself. The business process is.
Got it. So what are the key features of an automated ecosystem? You think about life cycle perspectives. How do we keep this ecosystem with high integrity, great flexibility? So what's your thoughts here?
I think the key feature, and it's where MEF plays a very important role, is the collaborative nature of things. The telecom world is a world where we have to collaborate because no one has deep enough pockets to build the facilities they need all around the world. We need to figure out how do we collaborate so that together we can better serve our enterprise customers. They need us in our home markets to deliver services for their customers. We need them in their home markets to deliver services. MEF helps us collaborating, not competing, but collaborating in building things together. And the automation ecosystem is about a symbiotic collaborative environment where the telecom industry is collaborating on bringing their resources to deliver services to the enterprise customers.
So that's very interesting, is MEF, you think of MEF as a standards body, the old stodgy standards. What you're really saying is MEF is a platform to be able to collaborate for all of the ecosystem players to come together, to agree, to collaborate, to build this one kind of federated model. And we talked about this, I think, in our plenary too. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely. MEF is the place that, allows the different MEF members to come and work together in defining the technical standards by which we operate. So it's the element where everyone has the ability to bring their experience and their perspective, and we are mutually agreeing on it. But more importantly, MEF is the place that is stimulating the dialogue between the actors in that ecosystem so that we can jointly build the environment that we want to live into. Because if we don't build automation, it will be built on us. We saw that in the telecom industry where, particularly in the mobile market, we were all making a fortune on the back of SMS messages, and then came WhatsApp. We could have been wiser and by ourselves make short messaging available for free. No, we created the place for WhatsApp. The same thing will happen to us now with automation services. If the telco industry is not collaborating, it will be forced to, collaborate or disappear. And that's something we have in our hands to make sure that, we take it to the next generation for the new telecom environment where we are collaborating and building the appropriate global services for our enterprise customers.
So when you say disappear, does that mean all the operators will be bit pipes to the customers and the hyperscalers will have all the services on their own network? Why would a telco disappear except for the physical assets that they have, which is a last mile loop?
The telco business typically, you see three segments in the telco business. You have the consumer business, you have the mobile business, and we have the enterprise business.
Okay.
every telecom operator has been, nurturing those free markets to varying degrees. Some have said, well, I cannot really serve my enterprise market beyond my borders. That's usually the case for many of the national operators. They are serving the small, medium enterprises in their own market, but they're challenged to deliver things for the global enterprises. But we've seen already internet service providers coming around, and internet service provider is maybe a kind of telecom services. Let's be clear on that. But we've seen telecom, internet services providers coming and stepping into the area of the global enterprise carriers. What used to be frame relay and TDM services and ATM has been replaced by IP access nowadays. And anyone can be an internet service providers. How do you what is the value that a carrier is bringing is a different dimension of service back to the experience level agreement. Typically, an internet service provider is a consumer-driven business. Everyone is watching Netflix, everyone is playing Fortnite, and what do you do to use to do that? You use an internet service, either from a national operator or from a large consumer-focused internet service provider. In the enterprise business, normally our enterprise customers are not watching Netflix. At least not during business hours, right? But they can make use of the network that people are using at night to watch Netflix. They can make use of that network during the business hours to run their business, right? The segment we're serving of global multinationals that are present everywhere around the world, the expectation of the CIO is that they have roughly the same service everywhere. That the way that they can plan the utilization of their IT infrastructure is the same everywhere. They have the same help desk processes. They have the same business processes around it. It's something that a local internet service provider cannot deliver because it's not their sweet spot. They are focused on the consumer business, right? They're focused on making sure people can watch Netflix at night. It's a very important task. It's very difficult, but it's a very different task than serving the enterprise segment.
Interesting.
Right? And so the business processes that we are building, thanks to MEF actually, are very much focused on that business segment. There are other bodies like TM Forum, like Camara, who are building things for the mobile or the consumer environment. They are very focused on how do we help building things at scale for the consumer segment. It does benefit the internet service provider segment as well, because they now know how to contract and build their services at scale for their customer base as well. But it's a local customer base for a consumer, feature set. You don't have many packages. You can order everything as long as it's black, right? That's what you get on the consumer side. You get small, medium, large, and that's it. In the enterprise segment, you have a very wide range of options that the enterprise customer are expecting, because that's what they need to tailor the network to their business processes.
Got it. So how does MEF benefit AT&T?
MEF is benefiting AT&T in many, many dimensions. It's the place where we can collaborate with our partners in the marketplace. It's the place where, again, we, AT&T International in particular, being part of AT&T, we have our own research and development organization, AT&T Labs, who is very much focused on developing things for our US market. That's where the bulk of our capital is going. And it's, a job to build things for our US marketplace. Internationally, we need to make sure that all of our friends in the marketplace and, all of our suppliers, all of our partners are abiding by the same principles of, how do we interoperate, how do we automate things and so on. Automating is about agreeing on a common language, but it's making sure that we do understand each other when we speak that language, which is not necessarily taken for granted, right? That's where MEF plays a crucial role for us of being the forum where we can express those opinions with our main partners in that environment and collectively build that ecosystem. So it's a fundamental research and development element for us, which is distributed research and development with every other carrier so that we are jointly building that vision of the global NAS.
Yeah, no, it's actually really well put of what we really have turned into. And then I really like it. We should probably change it. Change it to that description. I think it's a very, very elegant description. Now we have it recorded. So that's really good. So NAS, just, to end this episode, NAS, what's your thoughts on NAS?
NAS is the next revolution of the telecom world. The global telecom space started from, undersea cables and communications between continents, moved to, lease line, frame relay and ATM, then we saw the internet, then we saw Ethernet and so on. We are the fifth or the sixth generation of corporate networking. NAS is the emerging generation where indeed you have this more, I would not necessarily say self-serving, but this more flexible, extremely flexible environment where enterprise customers can pick and choose the elements they need to meet the experience that they need for their business. It's an on-demand environment, which is extremely demanding. It's an environment where customers will be able to pick and choose the elements. If they're not satisfied with them, they'll throw them away. That's part of the on-demand environment. That's what things as a service are. We'll go again to Microsoft and to Azure, spin up a virtual machine, try to do what we need with it. If it doesn't work, we'll spin it down and we move on. And people have the same expectation now with telecom services. How can I spin up telecom services and throw them away when I don't need them anymore? The challenge for us is that we have still a facility-based environment. If you go and apply for a permit to dig through a road to lay down fiber, you want to recover your investment. It's not necessarily compatible with throwing it away, right? So we have to learn how do we make that available in a manner, the automation available in a manner where those more long-lasting assets can still be exploited beyond the initial use case. So sharing inventories maybe is a way to make sure that people know, hey, there's already a facility there. I don't need to build more. Some regulators are trying to go this way. It's going to take a lot of time for things that happen outside of the cloud data centers to be aligned with that on-demand paradigm. That's where the rubber meets the road. But it's vital for us as an industry that we're capable of working in that manner.
Well, Bertrand, thank you so much for this episode. Really, really great wisdom and experience and your background in AT&T. So thank you, and I think our listeners will really, really enjoy this episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for Executives at the Edge. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe today. Share online a review. Find all our episodes on your favorite podcast platform and at MEF.net.